I'm back. I'm live. It's all happening in a bedroom. Nothing crazy. It's amazing how good the videos look on the channel, isn't it? And now you've just got like my bedroom. Old school, low class. Keeping it all easy. Well, it is just me for the minute. Nobody else. We're just waiting. So as you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about world whiskey today. We did the whole sample thing yesterday. Are samples good? Are they not? Is it a good idea to get them? Can they give you a good enough idea of how a bottle will develop over time? But during that whole stream yesterday, I had a really good idea, which I'm amazed no one else has done yet in terms of business. European whiskies and world whiskies are massive. We all can't escape Japanese whiskies. You know, there's this growing Goliath. But European whiskey is pretty interesting, and I don't think enough is done with it, because I've tried some really good European whiskies in the past. I'm going to be talking about a French one in a couple of minutes. But do you think it's amazing that as whiskey drinkers, no one in the world has thought to put together a miniature pack containing like a French single malt, a German single malt, a Belgian single malt? Why has no one done that? It makes no sense, right? Like a little 5-pack of all these crazy European whiskies. I'd be all over that. But no one has. I'd imagine there's a lot of business rights that go into doing things like that. So, nonetheless, we persevere and we go on and we'll buy some samples anyway. 3 whiskies to talk to you about tonight, possibly 4, depends how long this goes on for. Number 1 is the Georges Roselet, or Roseleur. I'm going to go with the Roseleur. Single malt from Alsace-Lorraine in France. They do a peated one and an unpeated one. This is the unpeated one. I'm going to be talking about that. And it's just letting it breathe in the glass a little bit. We will then be moving on to Yamazaki Distiller's Edition. Sample bottle I bought a while back. Nice 20 cl bottle. Sorry, a 10 cl bottle. I've not tried any Yamazaki for a long time. Not since we did the Yamazaki 12 review for the channel, which was about a year ago. So, excited to retry that and see what's going on with Yamazaki. And then something a bit special for you all at the end. Something I picked up in Canada, which is quite unusual in every sense of the word. It's just not typical in any way. It's not very typical of Canadian whiskey. So if any of you are watching who are Canadian whiskey fans, this might not be very reminiscent for you, but it's just very cool nonetheless. So whiskey in Europe. It's a pretty interesting prospect. It's a pretty interesting idea. Everyone knows Scotch whiskey. Everyone knows Irish whiskey. American whiskey. English whiskey is growing with the English Whiskey Company, the Lakes Distillery, many others setting up across the length and breadth of England. But European whiskey, something which I haven't experienced much of outside of France and French whiskey, and Sweden with Macmyra. But making a huge plethora of styles and a huge different range of whiskey. So it's very interesting to try and explore that. I was doing some research today, and in France alone, we've got 40 different whiskey distilleries. A combination of single malt distillers, single grain distillers, and blenders as well. So that's quite interesting. They're exploring many different versions and styles of whiskey. The main grain they distill is wheat, which is unusual because a lot of corn, a lot of maize grows in France. I think that's where Jameson source most of their corn from for their blends is from France. But sticking with single malts, because we'll be talking about this little single malt here. I'm just going to put that there. What are their most famous ones? What are they well known for? I can't think, like, nothing really, you think of Scotch whiskey, you think of Glenfiddich and Macallan. American whiskey is Jim Beam and Jack Daniels. French distilleries don't really roll off the tongue, mainly because I'm from Manchester and I pronounce a lot of them wrong, so that'd be why. But the biggest one for me is Brenne, Brenne. They are produced in the Cognac, or that is produced in the Cognac region of France. Told a little story on yesterday's live stream about retrying it. And, as soon as the glass hits your table, it smells of candy floss and Skittles and all these really super sweet pick and mix childhood memories. The taste is different. The taste is spicier and much maltier and much more intense than the nose would give off. You'd think it'd be this really soft, subtle whiskey, but it's got a nice bit of give to it. Cornog is another one. My French geography isn't fantastic. I can't really remember where Cornog is from, so I apologise. I think it's Brittany, I think. And they explore a huge range of whiskey. It reminds me a lot of Ardbeg, Cornog. Their peated one in particular. Their font's quite similar, the labels are quite similar. Probably indirectly, but Cornog reminds me a lot of Ardbeg whiskies. And then we've got these guys. Georges Roselier. Alsace-Lorraine, a hotly contested northern area of France or a southern area of Germany. You decide. This was given to me by a lovely customer, a good friend, and a fellow whiskey blogger rather than vlogger, a gentleman called Etienne, who goes by the name on YouTube of The Malt Cask. So if you want to check him out, lovely guy, knows his stuff, really likes to explore and use different things. And he gave me 2 samples of Roselier. He gave me the Torbay, or the Torba, which is the peated one. I sadly drank that, but that was very good. It reminded me of Kalila and some Port Charlotte style whiskies. It was really interesting. This is the unpeated one. So it's just 100% malted barley. I'm going to imagine the casks are mainly bourbon, with maybe like a little bit of sherry in there, or maybe even a little bit of cognac matured stuff. It does have a slight sweet tinge to the nose. It's 40%. I've got no idea about colouring, I've got no idea about chill filtration, so that's a little bit besides me at the minute. This is all a little bit on the fly, as you can see. So, French single malt. Let's dive in, let's explore. What does it remind, words, Phil, do words. What does it remind me of? What is it reminiscent of, especially to put across to you guys in the chat? There are 6 of you. By all means, speak up, kind of make yourselves known. There he is. Etienne. This is some French whiskey. It's one of your little samples, Etienne. The Roselier. As soon as you arrive, I say it wrong. Georges Roselier. The unpeated one. I've already drank the peated one. I apologise. The last 7 minutes, you've just missed like a very brief bit of French whiskey history. So if you want to go through that, feel free to. Coincidentally, Etienne has just come back from the Isle of Arran. And just from nosing this whiskey for a couple of minutes now, it's been there for a while, it really reminds me of Arran. It's got that really nice, creamy, fruity nose to it. There's almost like an apple pie kind of note, fresh pastry. I prefer this one to the peated one. I thought the peated one was really good. It, as I said before, it reminded me of like Kalilas and some Port Charlotte-y kind of stuff. Already I am preferring the nose on this. Loads of fresh fruit, like kind of like sour Bramley apples that have just been like slightly cooked. They're still a bit kind of fleshy. A really nice kind of like vanilla cream, like a chantilly cream kind of running through it. Sticking with the French theme. But in general, quite sweet. Really leaning towards that kind of dessert area style flavour. Come on, there's 9 of you watching now. Make yourselves known. Let's have some hellos and all that. Don't linger in the background. Say hello. A little bit of pepper, but kind of like a lemony pepper. You kind of like freshly ground pepper and a pestle and mortar. Specifically black pepper. It gives us this beautiful lemony kind of aroma. To all of you now, come on, speak up. Let's see who's watching. Who's looking at my beautiful bedroom with this awful wallpaper, which is still here. Slightly minerally as well. Really nice. Whiskey Whims. Hey man, first time here. What are you drinking? Never seen your stuff before. Was on the suggested. Hello, sir. We are going to go through some French whiskey today, and then we're going to go through some Japanese stuff and some special Canadian whiskey too. But this is the Georges Roselier single malt. It's an unpeated French single malt. Just going to talk a little bit through that. Hi, Alan. As you just heard, some French single malt. Going to talk through that a bit more. Stephen's finally caught a live video. Hi, Mark. How you doing? These guys do a distilled plum eau de vie, sorry, and for generations before teaming up with local barley farms start producing. So they were producing spirits beforehand, which is good. Because that's a lot of where the Japanese distilleries went, it's a lot of where the Scottish and the Irish distilleries started, even the American ones. Everything, all of our whiskey dreams, it's just a byproduct of farming, which is fantastic. But you're all getting lively in the chat now. Let's have some conversation between you all. You can see what I'm drinking, but what are you lot drinking tonight? Anything in your hands, or is it a school night, so you're being well behaved? So now that Etienne's mentioned they used to do a plum eau de vie, or in fact they still do, you're getting that a little bit more now. So that kind of fresh apple note, that really kind of clean, fruity nose, really kicks through. And even with the peated French whiskey I've tried, there's still a nice sweetness running through it. Obviously, Bren is the biggest version of this because that must be matured in a whiskey, in a warehouse, sorry, that's got cognac casks in it because it's so sweet. I'm drinking water. I'm at work. We'll continue to drink water, stay professional. Don't want you kind of, messing things up. So lovely and sweet on the nose, loads of fresh fruit, pastries and creams. What's it taste like? It's the most important part. Well, of course, it's Tottenham v Ajax tonight. If it was anywhere near as exciting as Liverpool and Barcelona was last night, that'd be great. But Stephen sipping on a Balblair 21 Gordon MacPhail. Fair play to you, mate. That sounds delicious. In a similar note to the Bren, and I know this is going to be really difficult to get across if any of you guys watching haven't tried French whiskey too much, or whiskey from Europe, in fact. But the taste on the Bren whiskey, which is very sweet, and then the taste on this, which also has a sweet nose, they're very similar. They really cross over paths. It's got this beautiful kind of initially peppery, spicy, clean and fresh approach, and then almost the maltiness really kicks in. It becomes like a savoury maltiness. There's no other way I can really get it across. It's kind of creamy, but it borders the line of being sweet and savoury. It really does kind of weave in between. Okay, with that Balblair 21, it must taste great at 43%. I guarantee you, Gordon MacPhail tried it at every percentage, and it must have just tasted good at 43. Etienne's pouring himself one too. Billy's in. What's up, Billy? So of the 5 French single malts I've tried, the noses in general are quite sweet. They're quite approachable. If you like Highlands and Speysides, if you poured this to me blind, I'd have said it was a Highland whiskey. It reminds me very much of like an Annock. It reminds me a little bit of an Arran single malt as well. There's a few unusual things kicking in. If you hear a buzzing going on in the back, I apologise. That's my laptop giving me notifications. I'll just turn those off. Make sure you guys can enjoy it. But yeah, it smells like a Highland whiskey, and to be fair, the taste isn't that different either. It's got a very, very nice, sweet, savoury, bitter thing to it. But I'm digging it. Billy's drinking tea. It's not as fun, but I'm sure you're enjoying it nonetheless. I'm not a tea drinker, I prefer coffee. And Etienne says it reminded him a little bit of Highland Park 12 originally. I don't know if I agree too much with that. This sample bottle that you gave me has been sat here for a long time. You must have given me this sample like maybe 2 years ago, maybe even more. So I guarantee it would have changed a little bit in this little bottle over then. With Highland Park 12, I always get coffee and honey. They're like the 2 lead notes. With Highland Park, it's always like coffee, honey, and a dark chocolate collab of the 2. With this, it's just much fresher. It's much greener. Coffee in the morning and tea in the afternoon, really. It's weird as a British guy, I don't drink tea. I like it in cocktails and stuff like black tea and mango and things like that, but I'm just coffee all the way, man. Morning, noon or night. I've only just gotten into coffee though, so I can't be too evangelical about it because I'm still exploring the whole coffee thing. But a lovely nose, and then a beautiful malty, sweet, savoury finish to it. It's only 40%, which I don't think is a problem. And I don't know how long. I don't know what the oldest French distillery is. I can imagine maybe not that old. The French are the largest consumers of Scotch whiskey on the planet, which is a baffling figure to a lot of people, because you assume America, you assume India, or even Japan these days. Other parts of Germany or Scandinavia, because Germans and Scandinavians love whiskey, but the French really love Scotch. And normally, if this was like a Scotch whiskey or an Irish whiskey, I'd have a little bit of a go at it for being 40%. But with this, I really don't mind. Excuse me, I really don't mind it. The only French dome I tried was the Armoric. Double matured. It was a surprise at how nice it was, but you could tell there was something off in that sense it wasn't Scotch. Yeah, Armoric is one of those whiskies that I've come across before, but I've never tried. I'm sure Etienne, the malt cask in the chat, I'm sure he's tried some Armoric in the past. Having never tried it, I couldn't really give you an opinion on that. But for me, there's quite a distinct note of Scotch to this. This one does taste a lot like an Annock or an Arran, maybe even some like Macduff and the kind of Keith area whiskies. I'm drinking some Glenarmor that Griogi sent me. Glenarmor. You're going to have to talk to me a bit about that one, Alan. I've never heard of that before. But that was the Rosaleur whiskey. Really clean, really fresh. I'd probably, if that was on sale in the UK, I'd probably buy a full bottle of that. It's a nice session whiskey. It's nice and approachable. And from what I've seen and tasted of French whiskey, that seems to be the area in which they go. They're very clean. They're very fresh. They're not too out of the way. Experimentation will become this really the... Oh, so Alan's also drinking French whiskey. Glenarmor. Again, I've never tried that one. So I mean, throw some notes up in the comment section. Alan, what's it smell like? What's it taste like? What is it? Is it good? Is it not good? By all means, give me some feedback about this stuff because I really want to try more French whiskey and more European whiskey in general. Need to explore some of that Belgium, Germany. I have tried some Swiss whiskey, which I think was called Santis malt. But then, hey Welsh. But they matured it in a beer barrel, and it tasted like pepperami, like really smoked meat in a not nice way. But some good Armoric, but some not so good. Glenarmor is produced at Cornog. So Cornog, I knew of. I was chatting about Cornog before. They're the same people that own Gartbreck, which is going to be one of the new distilleries in Islay, but I sadly don't think that's happening anymore, unfortunately. But that's the brief cover of the French stuff. Clean, light, fresh, easy drinking. Big fan. Trenny and C. Hello guys, I have not seen you two since Canada. It's nice to see you. I know you guys have got something planned in about 15 minutes, so I won't try and go on too much. But yeah, Trenny and C are in the chat, by all means. Get involved with those guys. But I'm going to finish the French one, and then we're going to move on to Yamazaki. And we're going to chat a bit about Yamazaki and see what's going on. I would like to try German whiskey. They perfected beer and keep the labels honest without echoing. That's true. The Germans do booze pretty well. So I would love to try some German whiskey and just see what they've got going on in their stocks. $17 watching. I think that's a record for me. I'll be at Roy numbers before you know it. Now, I'm not going to ramble on at you all too much about Japanese whiskey because we all know it. Even if we've not tried it, we all know of it right now. Two big companies, Suntory and Nikka. One started in 1923, one started in 1934. Suntory used to be run by two gentlemen, one of them who left to form Nikka, and the other one who stayed on to make Yamazaki and Hikushu. Shunjori Tori, I believe, was the gentleman who stayed on at Suntory to form Yamazaki and Hakushu, and Masataka Takatsuru was the gentleman who went on to make Nikka in 1934, starting out with Yoichi. This is Yamazaki, and it's the Distiller's Edition. I haven't tried this for about 4 years, so when this little sample bottle came up, I kind of nabbed it straight away because it was like £8. So I thought, yes, got to have it. Got to see what's going on. And the videos that I put out last year of Hibiki 17 and Yamazaki 12 really rekindled my love for those whiskies. Because the first time I tried Yamazaki 12, and I'm honest about it in the video, I didn't get it. I didn't like it. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know what it was for. And I was a bit baffled. I was too young, perhaps. I didn't understand the complexity of whiskey. It's only in the last couple of years since really doing this channel that my palate's developed, and tasting notes have been getting more outrageous and things. So the complexity of Japanese whiskey now really sits well with me. Unfortunately, the prices are crazy. I don't know what they're like in Japan. I'd imagine cheaper, but here in the UK, Japanese whiskey is very expensive. Yamazaki 18 4 years ago was about £150. It's now approaching 700. Hibiki 17 is discontinued. Hakushi 12 is discontinued. Hibiki 12 is discontinued. Nika coffee grain and coffee malt are being temporarily discontinued. Nika 12 is going. So, you know, it's very unusual. Wallstrower picked up his first bottle of Yamazaki in Birmingham Airport and drank it in Andalusia because it was delicious. Yeah, the price is what has kept us away from doing my Japanese. Exactly, you know, even us as reviewers, we don't want to go to brands and, you know, pester them for whiskey because then the review becomes slightly tainted and then it becomes a little bit intense. Mark, your palate will develop with time. Just keep trying little bits more and more. I think smelling is the most important part of developing your palate. I love drinking whiskey; it's fantastic, but the smell is my favourite thing. I love kind of, you know, it's really personal. It's really nostalgic to smell a whiskey and say it reminds you of this or it reminds you of that. I wouldn't say drink whiskey every day. You know, depending on what kind of hours you work. You know, a Saturday or a Sunday, sit down with one glass and, you know, really examine it. Write notes down. Notes are very important. See if it reminds you of anything. I'm missing some questions here, so I'm just going to run through those. Japanese whiskey needs more regulations to protect the quality. Yeah, the regulations in Japan are a little bit unusual. The one brand that springs to mind is Taguchi or Tagoichi. They're in like these little ceramic-looking bottles. That is Scottish malt whiskey and Canadian grain whiskey that is unmatured. It's sent to Japan, where it's blended together and aged quite close to Hiroshima, I believe, in an underground, like, disused subway tunnel. And because it's been in Japan for a certain amount of time, it then legally becomes Japanese whiskey. Now, you can't do that with Scotch, you can't do that with Irish, I'm pretty sure you can't even do that with English whiskey, and probably not French whiskey either. Certainly not French institutions like champagne and cognac, because they are trademarked, as is Scotch, as is bourbon. You can make bourbon anywhere, it just, you know, has to follow certain regulations. One of them is it can only be made in America. So with Japanese whiskey, the rules are quite different. Yamazaki and Nika pretty much produce a lot of their own stock. It may not have been the case many years ago, but now it is, especially with these guys in Yamazaki and Hakushi as well. Malted in Montreal. Oh, hey man. Just saying hello. Can't stay. I've got a shovel. Thank you very much, man. It's nice to see you in these two because I've not watched any whiskey channels for ages, so it's nice to see you guys kind of popping up. So that's a brief bit about Japanese whiskey. The demand is insane. I don't know who from. It's not from the British side of things. Maybe in big cities like London and certainly Manchester, you have certain people who want certain reputations, so they buy certain things. Japanese whiskey is still on trend for that. But this is the base one. This is the Yamazaki Distillers Edition. It's 43%. It's probably not natural colour, and I think it's chill filtered. Again, I'm not too sure on that because it doesn't really declare on the sample. And the oak influence in this, I believe, is bourbon, sherry, and a little bit of Mizunara. From a training session that I had years ago, I think they pretty much take some quite young stock, between sort of 6 to 10 years old, some older stock, pushing maybe sort of 15, 16. They vat them together, and then I think it's a combo of bourbon, sherry, and Mizunara. But if any of you know any more, feel free to comment, because I could be wrong, because that training session was at least 5 years ago, and I've drank a lot since then. But you know, on paper it's distilled, matured, and blended and bottled in exactly the same way Scotch whisky is for this particular distillery that is Yamazaki. So let's smell it. Even the extra 3% in the glass from the previous one, it's much spicier. I like this. Loads of convo in the chat. That's the best thing about these kind of things, just getting to know you guys and getting to chat while we just kind of talk whiskey. It's got a very prickly nose on it. And there are certain things you can pick up, so with Yamazaki in particular, I always get kind of like wafer biscuits. probably coincidental, but you get like Japanese white pears. They're like juicier, like kind of finer grain pears. Tons of fruit, but there's like cherry blossom and just loads of big summery flavours in it. I get a bit of rhubarb, a little bit of strawberry. I'd even be mistaken for thinking there's some port in there as well. But yeah, really summery, really rich nose. I just remember that I got through a bottle of the Distillers Edition a couple of years ago. It's okay, but too expensive. Much better scotch for the money. Yeah, as Welsh has correctly said, the demand for Japanese whiskey versus the supply is one issue, but when demand outweighs supply, price does that. When this came out, it was about £40, I think. Now it's not. I think it's pushing 80 now. I think it's doubled in price in 5 years, which isn't unusual for Japanese whiskey. But then you think about the Scotch whiskey you can buy for £80, some really cool single barrels. But I think Yamazaki and most Japanese distillers are in an unnecessarily privileged position because the bottles sell out anyway. They don't necessarily want to sell them for those prices, but even at that prices, people are still buying them because they want them and they want to experience them. I've never seen Japanese miniatures in this country. I can imagine they are a pain to import. I would probably only buy the coffee malt grain at the moment, decent bottles. I agree with you totally, Stephen. I love the grain. I think the grain's delicious, and the malt has got this beautiful like Glenmorangey quality to it. It's really thick and lovely. I think the power of suggestion has a lot to taste, to smell. Struggling to pick up something. Power of suggestion is a very unusual thing. I run like 3 or 4 tastings a month with the whiskey shop in Manchester, and the room's always really quiet for like the first 3 whiskies. And you sit there and go, oh, it smells like this and smells like that, and people just kind of sit there and go, yeah. And you kind of want people to jump out a little bit more with their own. And we try and encourage that. You always get like 1 or 2 loud voices in the room. But when you're leading a tasting, you will kind of lead the way with tasting notes and smelling notes. But it's always nice to get people involved. But power of persuasion is a very important thing. So you do have to be quite quiet with it at the start, and then when people build up confidence, especially in public tastings, then they can come out. But I think at home you can really just roll with it. You can write down in your notes section whatever you want, because if it smells like that to you, then that's what it smells like. Yeah, power of persuasion is pretty intense. What's the standard Taketsuru like? Standard Taketsuru is really good. You can still pick it out for like £45-50 in some places. So that's Miyagikyo and Yoichi put together, peated and unpeated, kind of blended together. Really, really tasty stuff, I should say. Drambude Ale live again, 2 in a row. Well, we have no video for today, and yesterday was a little bit of a warm-up, so today you've got your proper Whiskey Wednesday video. Standard Taketsuru is really good. Nika is probably, of the 2 big ones, the one that's had less inflation, because they've still managed to provide good whiskey, even though a lot of the age statements have kind of gone away. With Miyagikyo and Yoichi in particular. But I'd say you can still pick up Taketsuru standard pure malt for a good price. You can find it somewhere in miniatures. That's one of the only miniatures of Japanese whiskey I've seen in England. Whether or not it's still available now, I don't know, but it's very good quality whiskey. Everyone has their own memories of how something smells too. I mean, something they can, smelling notes are so nostalgic. And I love like really exotic fruity noses on whiskey because it reminds me of growing up as a kid, because my mum always had like fresh fruit bowls in like most of the rooms. There'd be like apples in the kitchen, there'd be pears and plums in the living room. So when I get those notes, it's quite reminiscent for me. My gran used to cook like a really awesome apple crumble, so when I smell apple crumble or apple pie in certain whiskies, it reminds me of being in my nan's house and that kind of smell, that kind of nostalgia and everything. But Yamazaki, so it smells really clean, it's really summery. That's the case for most Japanese whiskey. Very, very approachable. That's a nice memory. Thank you, it is a nice memory. And you should always attach whiskey to nice memories too. Go forward, create more. That's what we want to do. Yeah, loads of cherry blossom, strawberries, vanilla wafers, just lovely kind of fresh styles. But let's taste it, because that's where the money is. That's very interesting. Now, I don't know what batch this is from, because obviously it's not in its official bottle. That tastes old. That is oaky. Obviously Japan is slightly warmer, so whiskies will take in oak influence quicker in more heat. But that tastes like 15, 16 years old. That reminds me a lot of Glen Scotia 15. It's got that kind of dry, slightly salty spiciness to it. Very oak driven. The sweetness on the nose really goes away. There's none of that cherry blossom, there's none of that strawberry. It really is quite spicy. And it's only 3% more. And then the finish, it's kind of like it's a combo of the nose and the palate. The oak is still kind of lingering here, but then that kind of like strawberry cream note kind of comes through. Thank you for being able to catch it, Whisky Wims. That's really cool. Hopefully we'll see you at more of these. But enjoy the rest of your day, whatever it is you're doing. Cheers, man. That's really interesting. I thought it was just going to taste as sweet as it smelt, but it really is more unusual in the finish. Hey, Louise. What's your favourite expression of Glen Scotia? I know you mentioned it's probably your favourite distillery. Do you know what? A customer asked me in the shop the other day, what's your favourite distillery? And if we stick to Scotland, I really do find myself coming back to Glen Scotia constantly. Like Benriach is awesome, and Glendronach is awesome. Lagavulin great. You know, I really love Lefroy. But yeah, man, Glen Scotia, since they've rebranded everything, and we only started stocking it maybe a year or 2 years ago at the whiskey shop, and since it came out, I've just been blown away by all of it. In all honesty, I've fallen out of love a little bit with the newest batch of 15, because it's not got that kind of charm that it had the first time I tried it. But at the minute, like last year's Campbelltown Port Barrel was just insane. This year's Rum Cask is really good as well. The standard 18-year-old, I will go out on a limb and say that it's probably my favourite standard 18-year-old whiskey, along with like things like Anarch 18, because I retried that in January and forgot how amazing that is as well. Dronach 18 is amazing, don't get me wrong, but I find myself getting a bit distant from sherry these days. And then there's the 25, which is probably still one of the, outside of Glenfarclas, is probably still the best value 25-year-old you can buy in Scotch whisky. It is very similar to the 18, which is probably its only downside with the 25, because they're very, very similar. But you know, if you wanted to splash out and you wanted the fancy box and the age statement, I'd go for it. But I think the 18 is just unbelievable. It's fantastic whiskey. Etienne's a fan of it as well. We all love Glen Scotia. My favourite world whiskey I've tried is the Amrit Intermediate Sherry. Louise, I tried a bottle of that as well, and that was like Craig Ellicky, or like really dirty old Macallan. It was so spicy and full on. Amrit makes some incredible whiskey, they really do. Stephen says, he's only got the Ruby Port, but it's brilliant. For a whiskey that was £50 a bottle, I'm hard pressed to, in Scotch whiskey anyway, I'm hard pressed to find another bottle at £50 that is as good as that Ruby Port. The shop I bought made a pricing mistake. They had it for $45. You bought two. Smart move. I bought two as well. We bought that for my colleague for his birthday last year, and he drank it in like a month. I was baffled, because that's a powerful whiskey. But yeah, Luis has got taste, man. That Amrit Intermediate Sherry is very, very good. I'm hoping the 15 of you can stay tuned for like the next 10 minutes, because as I work through this little sample of Canadian whiskey is very unusual, and I can't wait to talk to you all about it, because it's really cool. And I've got a little bit of a thing about Canadian whiskey to get through. So yeah, it smells great. It's a smell that's very up my street in terms of whiskey. It's cherry blossoms and strawberries and vanillas and big exotic fruity flavours. I love that. It's very alluring. The taste is spicy. It's very oak driven. It's quite full on. There's a nice kind of like cedar wood, almost black pepper note to it, which I'm really digging. I think that's really interesting. I'm assuming that's probably from some of the Mizunara oak that's in it. There'll be a very tiny amount, because Mizunara takes a long time to impart its flavour. It's a very porous oak, it leaks a lot, so it's not very reliable in terms of the American oak or European oak. But you get that kind of woody, peppery spice, which is kind of, in my mind, classic Mizunara influence. It's a bit more present in the 18-year-old, but, you know, it's an expensive whiskey now. And then the finish is like a mashup of the two. Strawberry cream, dry spiciness. It's not like chili spice, it's more of just like wood spice. Really pleasant, long, lingering wood spice. But then on the flip side, a more spirity element is coming through now. For any of you that have tried New Make Spirit or even smelt New Make Spirit, it has that very overly ripe green thing about it, like, you know, just kind of like orchid fruits and apples and pears and stuff. There's spirit coming through now, which is mingling in with the oak. Yeah, a nice balance of age and youth kicking around in there. You know, it is averaging about £80 a bottle now, and you know, I haven't got time to write out the list of whiskies which deliver a flavour that is as interesting, but in a bigger way. I think for the rest of that, I'm probably going to make some sort of cocktail with, because I'm trying to get back into cocktails making, because it's quite interesting. I'm making Dram Dude thirsty. I'm making myself thirsty, dude. I did the live last night with no water. I was like pouring dregs of it from this bottle. Now I've got water, I'm hydrated, I've eaten, so I'm working. Don't want that to slip off. Biggest store cock-up I've had was when a bottle of Igor 17 turned up in the post by mistake, topped by Yamazaki 18, which should have been the 12th. I've had a couple of things happen like that. Different bottles turn up by mistake. I had a bottle of Ardmore 20 turn up to the shop the other day. Official bottle, 65 quid. I thought that had sold out. I'm kind of tempted to buy it. Now I've gone very quickly from French into Japanese, and I'm going to talk about this. For those of you that don't have me on Instagram or anything like that, if you do want to follow me on Instagram, it's just my name, so it's just P Dwyer, DWYER 92. There is a Whisky Wednesday Instagram account, but I just don't use it. I think it's easier to just put two things into one. This thing, I was in Victoria in January at the Victoria Whisky Festival, in the process of writing a written article about that, which hopefully you'll all read, because it was the best whisky festival I've ever been to for numerous different reasons. And while I was there, I got chatting to a guy called Adam, who is actually from England, but he's lived in Canada for a while, and he runs a shop in Victoria called The Strath, which is a huge just spirit store. It's mainly whiskey, but wines and beers and vodkas and gins, loads of really cool stuff, loads of interesting stuff as well. And I got chatting to him for a while. He was there with his work colleague, Emily, I think her name was, and they had a little stall. They were just selling stuff, and on the stall were these really unusual looking, all like glass bottles with glass stoppers, not like decanter level, but just like a corked lid, but it was made of glass. It was really cool. It's like, what is it? And they're called Shelter Point. I've never heard of this. What is this? And they're a local distillery to Victoria, and they're being just really experimental and really out there. Now, to give you some background, just while I pour this in there, Canadian whiskey is something that I have always had not a problem with, but it's like the black sheep of whiskey. Loads of people drink it, and Crown Royal is still one of the biggest selling brands in the world. But it's never sat well with me. It's always just been like quite flat. It's never done anything really exciting. It's never done anything too verbose. It's never, tried to be too outrageous for the sake of being outrageous, which a lot of whiskey I like does. Things like George T. Staggs and Wellers and Glen Scotia cash strength and things. You know, they're just really intense. Have you smeared Vaseline on your lens? I haven't. No, it's just my signal in this house is some of the worst quality in the world. So I do apologise. But no, pretty sure there's no Vaseline. Nope, not into that. So yeah, typically it's been really, Canadian whiskey's been really flat for me. But then I tried Lot 40, which I talked a bit about yesterday. And then I tried Lot 40 cash strength, which blew me away. Properly blew me away. Like, as good as other cash strength whiskies that I've tried. And then I went to Canada. And even though I was signed up to like a Bunnahabhain tasting, which is fantastic, and an Ardbeg tasting, and a Buffalo Trace tasting, I wanted to go there to find Canadian whiskey that was exciting. It was almost like a mission to do so. So I got chatting with Adam, and he went, "This is whiskey from Shelter Point." And I went, "Okay, can I try some?" He went, "No, we don't have any to try. They're all single barrels, and we've only got these 5 of each left." If that was a sales tactic, it worked. And one was matured in a Buffalo Trace cask. And then this thing, it's a single barrel of only 212 bottles, bottled just for the Strath. It is 100% unmalted barley. It's 57.3%, and it's been solely matured in an ex-blackberry wine barrel. He said those things to me, and I just handed over some cash. I was sold in an instant, because it's exciting and it's experimental and it's very different. It was the equivalent of about £70, which I didn't really mind at the time, because it was one of the reasons I went to Canada. So, just to recap, it's Canadian. It's locally made within Victoria Island. It's 100% unmalted barley, which I've never tried anything like that before. It's 57.3%. It's a single barrel, all natural colour, no filtering, and it's matured in 1X blackberry wine cask. What is this whiskey? Was he a snake oil salesman? Let's find out. Well, luckily I bought the full bottle. I opened the full bottle. Sadly, I can't. It's not here to display. When I moved all my whiskey to my mum's house because it's just safer there. But let's smell it. Now, unusually, when I went to the Ardbeg masterclass, got to try Ardbeg 22, and that was unbelievable. It smelled like really sour apple sweets. Didn't smell smoky at all. And the gentleman sat behind me knew loads about Ardbeg, chatting about all these facts about how he would, how they shut down and everything, and how he tried to get stock from the early 90s and the late 90s. Really getting into it, and I thought, wow, this guy's like the biggest whiskey nerd I've ever heard. Turns out he was the master distiller of this stuff. And he said to me, "I'm just looking to make whiskey that no one's ever tried before, and I want to get people excited about drinking Canadian whiskey." And this does do that. Along with the guys at Lot 40, this really does make me quite excited. The nose is just downright weird. It's just really funky. You get the blackberry wine cask. There's kind of like menthol-y elements to it. I can imagine it's probably ex-American oak. And then there's like, I'm pretty sure you get these all around the world, but like when you've got a sore throat, like lozenges, and they're always like blackberry flavoured or raspberry flavoured, but they're always really minty as well because it cleans your senses out. It smells like a blackberry lozenge. It's got that really big hit of like juicy fruit to it, and then a minty note behind it as well. I don't know if Trenny and C are still in the chat. I don't think they are. But I bumped into them there, and Shelter Point had a stand, and I think at the Victoria Festival Whisky Awards, they cleaned up. I think they won pretty much everything. So if you've got a bit of free time, obviously you can still hear me, get on the internet, just Google Shelter Point. You'll see how cool the bottle is. It looks really unusual. The labels are great, the location's great, what they're doing is great. So just kind of while I'm going to ramble on about nosing this, just kind of Google that and see what's going on. So yeah, black currants, minty menthol, but you really get the unmalted barley. I've no idea how old this is. Probably going to take a stab at like 5, 6 years old. There will be a full review of this whiskey coming out as well, so there'll be a standard video for the channel eventually. But the unmalted barley really kicks. It's like being stood in it's like being stood on a malting floor. It's just giving you this really earthy sweetness. Spicy. Oh, is it spicy? But unlike the Yamazaki, the notes from the nose are still present all around the side of your tongue. So that blackberry's still there. The minty mentholiness is still there. What you do get is you do get that young, spirity barley heat, but it's not offensive. It's not new make offensive. Yeah, Food Quig has reviewed loads of the Shelter Point stuff. So go and check out Food Quig's channel, because he's reviewed, I think, nearly all of the standard range. I need another dram. Watching Whiskey Tube is a bad influence. It is. It is. We influence you to have a little bit more on a nice Wednesday night. Whiskey Wednesday, after all, man. Enjoy. I was thinking what British throat sweets came before Halls. It took me a while. I'm not sure what came before Halls. Lockets are a thing, but they were probably later. The finish just tastes like wine. It's got that beautiful, dry... tunes. Yeah, fair. Jesus Christ, tunes. I remember tunes. The finish just tastes like a really good quality wine. I've never tried blackberry wine, but it tastes like a really light kind of Pinot Noir or a Merlot. It's got that really just gentle, fruity, slightly drying finish to it. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it because it is 57%, and I don't want to kind of kill myself off because I've only done 3 and I normally do 4. So I'll dig around the bag and find something else a bit interesting for you guys and girls. If there's any girls in there. So a little bit of water. Just going to roll that around. See if it makes any radical difference. Also, while I've got 16 of you here, what's your opinion? Do you slowly kind of move the glass, or are you like a proper swirler? Because I swirl it, and so many people still have a go at me for swirling the glass. It's not Ralphie does like all this stuff. I do imagine if you do swirl it, you're going to kick up more alcohol, so the alcohol will be a bit more present on the nose. But that's an interesting discussion for you all to have in the comments. Do you slowly spin, or are you like a swirler? Tunes. I love tunes. The smell has come right back at me. Welsh tunes, it's this. It smells like that. That minty, mentally blackcurranty kind of thing. I roll it, but only on Ralphie's say so. Yeah. Slow then fast. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Go slower and then kind of build it up. That works as well. A gentle roll and stroll around the glass. I can hear his voice in my head every time I hear that quote. Water's just amplified it. All 3 of those big notes are still there. The blackberry's still there. The mint is still there, and the unmalted barley is still there. And that's quite a lot of water I've added to that. If anything, it's got sweeter. Now the water is just mellowed out the flavour. It's took the really intense part of the spice away. Almost made it nice and approachable. Billy, they look really interesting. I would, if you can get hold of any of them, I don't know what their availability is like in North America. They're a very small distillery, but if you really want something different and want something Canadian, I'm happy to champion Shelter Point. They don't need me to because they're already picking up tons of awards domestically, and there's none of that really unusual law in Canada. where they can legally add 9.09% of whatever else they want to the whiskey. Everything is just whiskey, as you'd imagine it to be: Scotch, American, Irish, whatever. They only make whiskey the way that we know it. And I think that law was only actually introduced so that they could sell whiskey cheaper in America, which they don't need to do anymore. So I think they should just kind of abolish that rule, and everything would be better for Canadian whiskey. Can you get them in the UK? I don't know if you can. Like I said, this was a single barrel just for Adam's shop, the Strath. So this one is kind of long gone. If any of you are based in the UK and you want a sample of it, I can happily send you one. Just message me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, whichever kind of where you follow me on. Getting decent Canadian whiskey in the UK is tougher than Pappy. It is. Even Lot 40, which is only 30 quid a bottle, really difficult to get hold of. Robin Sidwell, hey Robin, don't comment much but enjoying these live streams, good to be here. Robin, it's nice to have you. Apologies for me, I'm getting old and my back is really hurting. I'm just kind of stretching out a little bit on my bed. I've got pillows behind me and everything. I'm wearing my old man jumper. It's been a rough year this year. But welcome to Robin. So yeah, getting good Canadian whiskey in the UK is difficult. I find most Canadian customers I talk to actually want to buy Crown Royal, but in England, which makes no sense because it's going to be so much more expensive due to tax and, well, just tax, really. Yeah, Canadian whiskey is this, I feel, really under privileged. What is Lot 40? Mark, Lot 40 is a rye whiskey, but it's a 100% Canadian rye whiskey. It comes in this beautiful tall bottle. Again, it's about, in the UK, it's anywhere between 28 to 35 quid a bottle, so it's not expensive at all. It's 43%, it's delicious, it's good straight, it's good mixed, it's good with ice, it's good with whatever you want to do with it. One of the best session whiskies I've ever come across, along with stuff like Johnny Walker Black, Anok 12, Kalila 12. It's really up there in like standard stuff. So if you want to try cool rye whiskey, I encourage you to Google Lot 40 and check it out. I Like Things from Japan just sent through a Canadian Club advert if you want to check that out. Try Canadian Club 41-year-old in Canada. Really unusual. What's my Instagram handle? My Instagram handle is just my name. So P for Papa, or Pappy I should say, and then DWYER, so P Dwyer 92. You'll see my face, that's my profile picture. Check me out on Instagram. If you're based in the UK, I'll happily send some samples of this stuff through because I've got a full bottle of it, and it's here to share. So. Oh yeah, Canadian Club 41. My mind's got like a million thoughts running through it. I was in the USA. Still a Christian. It's nice to have more followers and stuff. It's nice to see you there. You might be able to get it in America. I don't know. Worth a look. Shelter Point. Not this one, but their range. Anyway. Okay. Side topic. Old whiskey. Right. Ajax 3, Spurs 0. Jesus. Ajax Liverpool final. Ajax all the way. I love those Dutch guys. Separate topic for the 16 of you still watching. Thank you for sticking with me with this because this is I'm not used to doing this kind of thing, so to have 16 of you is quite a big deal for me. So thank you very much. Old whiskey is expensive in general, maybe with the exception of like old grain whiskies because they're really undervalued and they're very, there's loads of it lying around. So think about 40-year-old whiskies, right? Balvenie 40 is like £3,000. Glenfiddich 40 is about the same. Macallan 40, pretty sure that's like 10 grand in the UK. I can't think of other brands that have 40-year-old whiskies. Deanston have got like a 40-year-old for about 1,000, I think. Leipzig 40, I would love to try that. That's about 2,000 again. So old whiskey is expensive, especially when you get into those nearly half-decade numbers. And in the UK, it is because tax is a pain. And as whiskey makers are, they're taxed on what went into the barrel, not what comes out, which is one of the reasons old whiskey is so expensive, because you're paying for most of what is not there. So that's quite unfortunate. Canadian Club 41, I think, was about 400 Canadian dollars a bottle. Not expensive. I'm not sure what the exchange rate is, but that's quite cheap for a 41-year-old whiskey. But it still contained like 1% cognac and 1% sherry, and the other 98% was just whiskey. And I felt kind of bad about that. I felt it was really nice whiskey, but I felt kind of cheated because you've taken the time to put this thing together, this 41-year-old product, and you've still added 1% of some cognac and 1% of some sherry. I just thought that was a little bit unnecessary for 2% of a product. Just give us 100% of a whiskey. Yeah. Cheating is a strong word. I don't think it's cheating because they had the stock to make it 100% whiskey. So I've just generally got no idea why they put 2% of two other products in there. And you couldn't really taste it. You couldn't taste the sherry influence or the cognac influence. It tasted great, but even for the price, I'm sat there kind of going, if I was going to spend the equivalent of 400 Canadian dollars, which I think is like £260, I think. If I was going to spend £260 on a bottle of whiskey, it wouldn't be something that's got 2% of something else in it. It'd be, I don't like this word, so forgive me for using this word, but I don't like the word pure. But I'd rather buy something that was 100% rather than 98%. But that's just me. I think that's the only traditionalist bit of me that kicks around. And I think it's stuff like that which is giving Canadian whiskey a bad name. I have a few years ago. Armagnac. Right, we have a Frenchman in the comments. And me and Etienne have chatted in the past about Armagnac. Armagnac is insane value for money. It's almost like the grain whiskey equivalent of French products. Cognac is very expensive. Old cognac is insanely expensive, which is annoying for something that's like normally 40% and not natural colour. But Armagnac is like, my mother was born in 1964 and it's her birthday this month, and to get her a 55-year-old bottle of Armagnac would have cost me maybe like £200, which is nothing, right? You think about a 55-year-old single malt whiskey, you're talking, £10,000-12,000 plus at that point. Insane. But yeah, if you all like trying other spirits that are very old, I would totally check out Old Armagnac, because not only is it delicious, it's also quite good value for money. Etienne says Glenfarclas 40. Glenfarclas 40 is quite good value. I think that's about £600 a bottle. I don't think a lot of you are aware of my views on Glenfarclas, but I'm not the biggest fan. I find it just a bit flat. The 15 is good, but I find the rest of the range is really good value. But I think that value is reflected in the flavour. But that's a very personal thing. You might not agree with me, which is fine. Yeah, I think going back to my original point and going away from the old whiskey thing, I think what's giving Canadian whiskey a bad rep, certainly for whiskey nerds like most of us in this chat, it's the fact that you can add a certain percentage of other products to it. Whereas Lot 40, don't do that. Shelter Point, do not do that. I guarantee have opened a distillery in Canada, and they're doing like 100% rye. They're experimenting with it. They might not release it, but they're doing it as we speak. So it's such a vast country, and it's got so much stuff going on, that I think that rule is really impeaching on what Canadian whiskey can do, and it's capable of great things. It's capable of some of the best things, because those old distilleries have got the stock to do it, and it wouldn't be expensive either. Good value, Phil says, but I've had mixed bottles of Glenfarclas. I've been lucky enough to try most of the Glenfarclas range, and other than the 15, which is quite good, it's just never sat well with me. I always thought, oops, sorry about that. I'd always pay the extra bit of money for something like Glendronach. I've heard a few people say similar opinions on Glenfarclas. I try a sample before buying a bottle. Luckily, Glenfarclas do some really cool mini packs, so you can try the full range, 10, 12, 15, 105, all that stuff. I'd certainly say try Glenfarclas before you buy it, because in my mind it's a very particular type of whiskey drinker that only drinks Glenfarclas. But that's for another day. What's my favourite non-age statement bottling for below £80? Wow, that's a good question. Favourite non-age statement whiskey for below... I mean, we tried Japanese whiskey before. You can get Nika Yoichi, that's Yoichi. That's about £80. Sometimes a bit less, like 75. And that's well peated Japanese whiskey, and that stuff is lovely. Miyagikyo is very good, which is its sister distillery. But there's some notes in there I don't like. Yoichi would be in there. My brain's running through everything in the shop. The new Abelauer Cask Anamar, or Anama, it's called Rare Cask. It means rare cask, but that's really good. I was properly surprised by that. Ardbeg Ugadal, yes, Ardbeg Ugadal. I've not owned a bottle of that for so long. So yeah, Yoichi, Abelauer Cascamar, Ardbeg Ugadal. It has a vintage on it, but not an age statement. But Kalila Distillers Edition, that's very good as well. It's a 12-year-old, but it doesn't actually have an age on it, technically. Glen Scotia Double Cask is 40 quid. That's really good. So there's a good selection in there for peated and unpeated. Has anyone tried Glengoyne Legacy? I don't know if Alan from Whiskey Friend is still in the chat. Glengoyne Legacy is so good. He gave, in fact, there's the sample bottle. That's the sample bottle just there. I finished this the other day. That is probably the nicest Glengoyne I've ever tried. Not to say Glengoyne make bad whiskey, they make really good whiskey, but that stuff, that's chapter 1. I think it's 48%, and it's mainly sherry cask, like first fill sherry casks. Oh, it's delicious. I don't know if you can still buy it. I think it's 50 quid, or it was 50 quid. Genuinely impressed. Would buy that if it's available. Is it better than the 21? I preferred it to the 21. I tried Glengoyne 18, 21 and 25 a couple of weeks ago, and was like, again, just not for me. Didn't sit well with me. Stuart, tried the teapot dram. Again, Alan sent me some of the teapot dram. Smelled unbelievable. Tasted so weird. Just kind of get my head around the taste. It was like balsamic vinegar, really unusual. Might try Glen Scotia. Dude, check out Glen Scotia. Great value. You can even get their age stated bottles for under 80 quid. You really can. Amrit Fusion. Oh, of course, Welsh. Amrit Fusion. If you want to try Indian whiskey, Amrit Fusion is below 80 quid. Not age stated. About 5-6 years old. Wonderful whiskey. Chocolatey, a bit smoky. The standard single malt is even cheaper, and that's really tasty as well. Thinking of joining you for a jam. What to choose? Whatever you like, sir. Whatever you like. Yeah, Stephen, I tried the newest teapot dram. I think that was the 8th one. It really needed water because it was so full on. It actually reminded me a lot of Cavalan, like the Cavalan Vino Barrique stuff. Really intense and really dry. Oh, we're getting some cracking comment. Yeah, Spice Tree. You guys are so much better at this than me. I work in a whiskey shop and I can't even think about the stuff we stock. Spice Tree's great. I mean, that's below 50 quid. Yeah, that's outrageous. 6 is the newest one. Okay, so it was 6 that I tried. Smelled like balsamic vinegar, which I love, but was so intense on the taste. It did need water to calm it down, and I think it was when I added water to it, it was one of the whiskies that went so cloudy and so intense. Those are all, or Fireball. You could always roll with Fireball. That's below 80 quid and has no age statement, and it's Canadian on the same subject. But as a summary, and I'll grab another sample from the bag over there, and we can just kind of chat for a little bit. It'll be like another 10-15 minutes. If you haven't heard of Shelter Point before, I don't expect a lot of you to have done. Head over to Food Quig's channel, because he's reviewed quite a lot of them. And I think you will kind of get a better understanding of the distillery mentality, and the bottles look beautiful, and he has that big panning shot of all of his whiskies, and you can see a few of them in the shop. So if you like the idea of this, and trying interesting Canadian whiskey that I think is sadly only really available in Western Canada, and I mean distant Western Canada and Ireland, check his channel out. It's a great channel anyway. I had the privilege of meeting him a couple of days ago. A couple of weeks ago now, actually. And if you really like rye whiskey and American whiskey, please do check out Lot 40. Because it's just outrageous. It really does go head to head with a lot of really good quality rye whiskies. I tried Crown Royal the other day for the first time. Just a standard one. Bought like 4 minis of that in Canada. It's alright. I can see why it's so popular, because it's such an easy thing to drink. You know, people mix it, people taste it, and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it was okay. Anyway, and I'm at the latest batch of Springbank 12. It's 50-50 bourbon and sherry. Not the bad ones. I haven't Welsh, no. I'm trying to lay my hands on a sample of some Springbank 28-year-old, but so far it's getting away from me. Mark, no worries, man. Thank you for chatting to us. You've been great in the comment section. We look forward to seeing you again on one of these. We will do another one relatively soon. But as I kind of finish this off, it's really good with a bit of water in it. The fruity kind of blackcurrant notes really pop once you've had a bit of water. What do you guys want me to try next? Because I was going through that sample bag before, and there's a 23-year-old Glendronach, like a 1993 25-year-old Glendronach. There's a 12-year-old Brook-Laddie, which I think is from a sherry cask, which is beautifully dark. I've got some Hibiki 17. There's some old Glendronach 15. If you guys want to chat about old Glendronach 15. There is, what else is in there? There's 2017 Tom H. Handy, which got Jim Murray's best rye in the world, I believe. That gent's going for Hibiki 17. Well, you're all going for Hibiki 17. Well, 2 of you are. 2 of 18 are saying Hibiki 17. There's 2 different versions of Lafroig 10 cash strength, but I feel like I've covered that a lot on live streams. There is some 1990s Johnny Walker Black Label, which is a little bit unusual. There is some Texas bourbon and some Texas blended whiskey. And there's some cool Loch Lomond stuff. There's a 17-year-old Inchmurrin single barrel. There is a... How good value is it, old Black Label in auctions? Pretty good. Pretty good in all honesty. I bought that one off a customer who just wanted to sell it. I think I paid 50 quid. And it's a 1999 Millennium bottling. But it was a 1.75 litre bottle. So it was a Magnum bottle. Pretty big. So I got pretty good value. But you can pick up some old Johnny Walker for some very good value on auction sites. It's one of the things I hunt down on a regular basis. Like old Johnny Walkers, because I think they're very interesting to try. You can get a box dated one for like 20 quid. Are you all going for Hibiki 17? Do you want me to try Hibiki 17? Or there is the old Glendronach 15, which I can chat a little bit about. Because there's like a good sizable chunk of that left. Or there's a 1993 or a 95 20-something-year-old Glendronach in that box as well. So far, that's 3 of you for Hibiki 17 and 1 of you for Glendronach 15. If you vote in the chat between the 2, I will do one of them. There is a video on the channel of Hibiki 17. Etienne, you know that your love and my love for that Loch Lomond single barrel is very true. In fact, I could do that, because what is the Loch Lomond single barrel? That's 2 for Glendronach 15. So far, Hibiki 17 is still winning. Anyone else? There must be another one of you. 3 for 3 for both. I could do both. I've got plenty of water. I'll tell you what I'll do. Because there is a video of Hibiki already, I think I'll do the Glendronach, because there isn't a video of the old Glendronach. Or as Welsh as we might do both. Keep streaming and work through them all. We'll see. Let me go and grab the 15 sample, and I can show you guys it and we can talk about it. It's in a Brookladdy bottle, but just ignore that. I'll be like 2 seconds. So, even though it says Brookladdy 1992 on it, this is in fact the old Glendronach 15 Revival. It's a 2014 bottling, which, as we did the maths last night, makes it at least 18 years old. So it says 15, but it's more like 18. Now, the review for the newest one went live on the channel 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And the new one, I don't have the bottle here with me, I've left it in work. And we just got a, it's an allocated product, it's not a regular release, which I told you all last night. And then this morning I got 4 more cases sent to me. So there's still 24 bottles of new Glendronach 15 sat in my shop. About 62 quid, it's a bit more expensive, but if you've got an old one, I'd say it's worth buying to try next to the new one. I bought the newer GD15 from your shop some time ago. I love it. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I think you were one of the first, actually, Stuart. You really were. I have a very interesting one. Scapa 14 single barrel bourbon and cask strength. See, Scapa is awesome, especially indie Scapa. What shop is this? It is just the Whisky shop. Just Google the Whisky shop. It's the first one that comes up. I've got a 2018 bottling of the Allardyce. Weird that it's apparently 23 years old. Slash chance to get the original address before it's reverted back to 18. More than likely, yes. The Rachel's now in charge of the blending and the batching, and pretty much now what you see on Glendronach is what it says. So if it's an 18, it's mainly 18. If it's a 15, it's mainly 15. If it's a 12, it's mainly 12. So if you can still find old stock, and by all means the bottle dates and the codes are just on the back of the bottle. Turn it over, it's on the bottom kind of tiny part of the split of the bottle. You can kind of just see what year it was bottled and what month it was bottled. But this is a 5-year-old bottling. Seems weird to say that. The new one is at work, so it's not here, but I know what the new one tastes like. It's very glassy, it's very clean. I've not tried the old GD15. Would you all pay 80 to 90 quid for it? I mean, I think with the people who had the old one, we were quite privileged because it was only £50 a bottle. Has anyone tried the new Aberlour? How does it? Emma, I was literally just talking about this. So if you want to check GD15, turn the bottle around, and on the bottom, like there should be some really fine black digits. Hold up against the light, and it should have a year on it, and that'll tell you what year your whiskey was bottled. Just chatting about that Aberlour, I bought one, and it's really tasty. It's really, really, really good. I think it's the replacement for the 12 non-chill filter, and it's as good. I'll be honest with you, it still really is good. That's coming, don't worry. But yeah, that new Aberlour is really good. Would I pay 80 to 90 quid for the old Glendronach 15 at auction? The people who bought it before it went away, we were quite privileged because we got it for about 50 quid, which was extreme value for money. If you... Oh, he's got a 2013 one. Well done to you. I'd say the whiskey in it is probably worth 80 quid because it's really, really, really good. So I'd say if you're looking to drop the money, this is at Whiskey Freedom in the chat, I'd say do it because it's worth trying because it's not going to be around for ages, and it's 80 quid that you probably spend on an 18-year-old whiskey anyway, and it is 18 years old. So for me, yes. With fees, maximum maybe like 90, 92. I want to get the old 15 for 80, 90. You could buy the 18 hours for that. That is also very true, but I think that Glendronach 15 does have a reputation about it, and until it starts reaching crazy money, when the new stock starts to flood and the old one disappears, I think for that it would be quite a good thing to have and to drink slowly over a good amount of time. But anyway, the new Glendronach. The new Glendronach 15 is, I think I described it as glassy. It's cleaner. It's got this really nice transparent spice to it. Very oak driven, quite full on. Got that classic kind of hot cross bun Glendronach sherry flavour to it. Really, really different from the standard range. And the 18 is really unusual because it's the only one in the range now which doesn't use Pedro Jimenez sherry. It's just Oloroso. So the 12, 15, and 21 are kind of, little brother, middle brother, big brother. The 18 is the unusual cousin. It kind of sticks out. But the old 15 is a little bit heavier. It's a little bit dirtier, for want of a better word. Yeah, they should be about 19 years old plus Etienne. Mine's 18 to 19, and that's the year before yours, so yours should be like 19 to 20, maybe 21. This just smells of like deep, dirty, dark, heavy sherry. Horse preferred the 18 over the 15, but some both readily available. The 15 was, when this was available, the 15 was always really good value for money. The 18 is probably the best one. I'm not a fan of the 21 because I think it's too dry. But I've only tried one batch of it, so it could have just been that batch. But the 18 has got the best flavour and is worth every penny. The 15 was just good value at the time, especially when it was this old. Yeah, if you can buy both, I'd say buy both. This, the old one, texturally and on the palate, is easier to drink. The new one has got a lot more spice to it, but it's a nice spice, it's a pleasant spice. This is just kind of like that classic epitome of, I think Morad's kind of nailed it. It's got the, that prune and fig heavy kind of date-laden Christmas cake thing to it. It's what everyone loves about old sherried whiskey, especially when it was available for the crazy money that it was. Yeah, loads of Christmas cake. Loads and loads of Christmas cake. It just has like a softer, thicker mouthfeel to it. Whereas the new one, it's a bit more direct. It's a bit more apparent, and you can tell that kind of 4-year difference. Oh, just go mental. Yeah, Etienne's kind of hit it on the head. This year's, whatever is bottled this year of the 18-year-old, will be 18 years old. So anything prior to this year, so 2018, 17, 16, 15, 14, they will be a lot older than 18. And it's the same with the 12 as well. I saw a picture comparison on Instagram a couple of days ago. I can't remember who it was from, but it was 2 bottles of 12-year-old. One was from the first year Billy took over, and one was from the third. The colour difference was unbelievable. The first one was so dark. I guarantee that was probably about 15, 16 years old. If you ask me which one of the two I prefer the old one, but that's because it says 15, but it's really not. Whereas the newer one is more of an actual 15-year-old, so it's more approachable in that sense of being like a direct thing. So I prefer this one, but it doesn't mean the new one isn't good. I do like the new one quite a lot, and I'll end up buying more than one bottle of it for sure. But yeah, this old one is thicker, it's a bit easier to drink, it's not as spicy. Just lovely. Lovely old whiskey, and there's only this much of it left. So I shall be savouring this bit by bit. Yeah, new one, spicier, more direct, a bit more full on. The older bottlings, this in specific is a 2014 bottling, gentle, thicker, slightly sweeter, and a much more gentle finish as well. DD and Glengoyne make the best all sherried whiskey. Macallan is rubbish. You know what the downside is? Macallan's actually really good. It's just that it's a brand now. I think it stopped being a whiskey distillery quite a while ago, and it's now just a brand. I buy a bottle of the Edition every year because I love it, and I think the Macallan Edition series, I think, is really interesting. They're about 80 quid. They're not cheap, but I think it's the best way to try Macallan. Is those Edition bottles, because the 4 was so good. Not everyone liked the 3, but I liked the 3, and the 2 was unbelievable. Like, the 2 was extraordinary whiskey. So the 5 comes out this year. I'll buy one. You guys will see the video of it. I didn't buy a bottle of Macallan Folio because I can't afford to do that. There's another question there I missed. Welsh said something about a Balvenie 15. I had this discussion the other day with a colleague, and in fact yesterday on the other live stream. I remember doing a launch event with that Balvenie 15 sherry single barrel, and I tried it, and I really didn't like it. I thought it was really too spicy, and then I tried another one, and it was a bit too soft, and then I tried another one, and it was beautiful, so I bought it, and then I tried another one, and again it was too soft. But I think that's just what you have with single barrel bottlings. They're always going to do that. The one I bought was awesome, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I don't know if you can order it anymore. We've not had it in our company for a while, so I don't know what the availability of it is like. Scotch auction, biggest one, most customers. Macallan is like a Rolex. There are plenty of watches that do the same thing, but people want the brand. Yeah. Emeroy's pretty much hit it on the head, you know. Macallan is Rolex. Dalmore is Patek Philippe. You know, it's these really big brands that have got big histories and, you know, records of selling the world's most expensive whiskies. So they continue with that. I can buy the Classic Cut at a Spanish wine site, but I'm just not inclined to. Welsh, dare I ask how much that Classic Cut is? Because I would like to try that. I'm not keen on the Macallan bottles, though. I'm not a fan of the double cask. There's a video on the channel of me not being very complimentary about that whiskey. Macallan 8-year-old Fine Oak's hitting 160 quid now. Well, the Fine Oak range is discontinued, so I can see why that's going for more, but an 8-year-old for £160, you know, it's just a bit insane. But you could probably put Macallan, a Macallan badge on something, on anything, and it would sell for a lot. But I think I don't think any distillery sets out with the intention to create that image for themselves. I think that is just something that has happened as a result of growing social trends in the Far East, in America, in the UK. So the people who can afford to pay for Macallan 30 and Macallan 40, they want it because A, they like to drink it, but B, there's an element of narcissism with it, there's an element of showing off with it. And, you know, to be fair, who can blame him? Because if you had the money, if I had the money, I would. I'd buy a 25-year-old Macallan and see what it tasted like. I bet it's okay, but I can't afford to buy it now. But if I was a millionaire, I probably would, just to see what it was like. But, you know, hypothetical things are kind of all in here. You get some reasonably priced K&R bottlings of Dalmore on the secondary market. You can. Who was it you mentioned yesterday that they've got an SMWS bottling of a Dalmore at cash strength, which I would love to try. I reckon Dalmore makes some amazing whiskey. It's just the people that own it really kind of drive it into the ground. So what do you think is better, 15-year-old, the Glendronach 15 or the Bowmore 15? I'm going to go with Glendronach 15, but I do have a soft spot for Bowmore 15 quite a bit, because it's really fudgy and smoky. I think the 15 is better than the 18. I think there's more flavour for less money. But if I was given a choice between the two, I'd choose Glendronach. But the Bowmore is very, very good as well. I bought my Macallan Folio for $250, selling for stupid prices already. Yeah, if you can get a Macallan for a good price, it will always sell for crazy money pretty much instantly. It was less than 100 quid. I've just looked now, it's gone. That's the way it goes, isn't it? Macallan for less than £100, it's always going to go. So that, I know that wasn't like a really in-depth review on Glendronach 15. There was a lot of really cool info in the chat about the Glendronach vintages and stuff. The new one's really good. And as I said in the video, I think it's really unfair to compare it to the old one, because they're two totally different products. One is an averaging of 18 years old, and one is actually 15 years old. So, you know, if you can try the new one, I would recommend doing so. But if you really want to spend a bit more money on the old one, go for it. Here we go again. Spurs are 3-0 down, and they get 2 in 4 minutes. I'm going to have to open BBC again. If you can try the Beaumont Lamrig 15. Oh, the Lamrig 15 was unbelievable. Why don't you get Super Chat enabled? Honestly, I don't know how to do that. If someone could tell me how I could enable Super Chat, I would. But I honestly really don't know. I'm just going to load up BBC Sport, because if another Champions League surprise happens again, I'm going to be really annoyed. Because I had money on Barcelona, Ajax, and now it looks like it's going to be Ajax and Liverpool. Oh my god, it's 2-2. How long's left? Oh, there's 29 minutes of it left as well. I always liked Ajax because, as a Man United fan, they always funded our team for years. We used to just nick all the really good players from Ajax. So, I can do one more, and if you want, we can do the Hibiki, but there is already a video on it, so it'll probably be a similar chat to that. Or the Loch Lomond single cask isn't available anymore, so I don't really see the point in doing that, and I kind of want to save that for a special day. There's an Inchmurrin 17-year-old single barrel, which is some of Loch Lomond's really weird stuff. We can go for that one. Or there's a... what else is in there? There's a whiskey in... there's a whiskey in Chicago called Few, and I've got a little sample of Few Delilah, which is named after that really famous punk bar in Chicago. Or there's Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. Yeah, loads of other interesting stuff. So if you guys want to know about any of those, just say it in the chat. But if you want to go with Hibiki, we can do Hibiki. I don't have a problem with that. Just going to put that glass to one side for a second. Tell us, Phil, what have Man United done this year? Ooh, not much. Not much. I never thought I'd have a conversation about football on one of these. The unusual thing was, when Ollie came in, everything got really good, and then he signed it, and then he put pen to paper on a contract, and everything kind of went downhill. I think, you know, the PSG game was the highlight. On a separate note, there's been some like magical stuff happening in the Champions League this year. Even just as a football fan, the Champions League has been unbelievable this year. It's been really boring the last couple of years because Madrid dominated it, but this year it's been really exciting. But I don't know. I think we have... if anyone's not interested in football, I do apologise about this conversation. But we have some problems fundamentally at Manchester United that start at the top and lead down to the bottom. We have some players that have some egos. I don't think egos are good in any place whatsoever. I think everyone should remain humble, even if you are on £300,000 a week. There's a reason you are, because you worked hard for it. So I think that should kind of not get to people's heads. I think a lot of people need to be reassessed on that section. Oh, I'm back. Okay. Apologies for that. I think I just lost my internet connection there for a second. But I am back and rolling now. The internet on my laptop has totally died. So I think it's just this. So one more. I think I'll hit up this Hibiki 17. And I'll stop talking about football because that's probably boring the other 16 of you, apart from me and Welsh. Me and Stephen, sorry. But yeah, as United fans, we've not had a good year this year. It's been a bit dire. But we've needed a bit of time to be put back into our place and conquer the world in a while. But I'm going to grab that Hibiki 17, and that'll probably be the last one of the night because this is it's just gone over an hour and a half. And I would like to eat something else. So, Etienne's off. Goodbye, Etienne. I'll see you soon, no doubt. So I'll grab this Hibiki, and then we'll kind of call it a night. So 1 second. Okay. Hibiki 17. 4 years ago, you could have bought this whiskey for 90 quid. Don't even dream of it now. I think it's averaging, if it's in stock, I think we're talking about £550 a bottle. And it's also been discontinued, which is a real downside. I think once a brand starts discontinuing its blended whiskies, that's a problem. Even at auction 2 years ago, it was 160 exactly. But I think as soon as a brand starts taking away blends, you know there's a problem with either just an insane amount of demand or they just can't keep up. So for those of you that haven't tried Hibiki or don't know what it is, blended whiskey containing Hakushu, Yamazaki and Cheetah grain whiskies. Now, all three are fantastic in their own right. They really are, especially the age-dated stuff. Minimum of 17 years old, 43%. Uses a combination of bourbon, sherry, Mizunara, and I believe some Japanese plum liqueur barrels as well, which is quite interesting, a little bit different. I went to the Yamazaki distillery 3 months ago. One of the best days of my life. I bet it was. I would love to. My colleague from a couple of years ago, Matt, went to Yamazaki and he said it was unbelievable. I would love to go. Hopefully I can one day. So with this being a combo of Hakushu, Yamazaki and Cheetah, most of the malt is Yamazaki driven, but the nose is just intense. It's just like when we tried the Yamazaki, it's really floral. It's really just super pleasant. Again, that kind of strawberry, cherry blossom, like red apples and apple skins and all these kind of unbelievable flavour profiles. I did not know that the 12 is filtered through bamboo. That's a new thing for me. So thank you for that little tidbit of knowledge. That's very good. Bamboo charcoal. Okay, that makes sense. Whiskey freedom. Night all. Good night, man. Have a good night. Welsh, I would love to go to Hakushu as well. Can you imagine the views? Most of the still room is glass, so it just looks out into this big green forest. Can't even imagine what working there is like. My internet is just not working at all today. I'm just going to close that down. Smell-wise, it's just an unbelievable whiskey. It has all those really floral notes of Yamazaki. It's got that extra kind of green exotic note Hakushu has, which is always like kiwi and lime. Cheetah brings like the butterscotch and the caramel and the vanilla. The palate is so gentle. It's just delicate and floral and fresh. You really get that kind of slightly bitter influence of Mizunara and old sherry casks. And then the finish is like beautifully spicy. kind of fizzy, lines the sides of your tongue, and again it's like more, dark chocolate with a kind of earthy, bitter notes to it. A wonderful contrast. It really does a little bit of everything flavour-wise. Very different. Very good. Just a shame it's not available anymore. I know the 21 is still available, but I don't know if that's going to be discontinued soon. I fear for Yamazaki 12's future. I really do. Stephen, you know what the sad bit is? I was there when Yamazaki was like 70 quid a bottle for the 12 and like 120 quid a bottle for the 18, and I didn't buy them. And it is a bit of a sad note because all the people I worked with went, "You should buy one of those," and I was like, "I know." Hibiki 17 was, I think, the first whiskey tasting I ever went to was a Suntory event, and it's still the only Suntory event I've ever been to in my life. And it was when the Hakushu and the Yamazaki Distillers Editions launched in 2014, and we tried Hakushu 12, Hibiki 12, and Hibiki 17. 3 of those whiskies have since been discontinued, and I remember trying Hakushu 12 and just loving it. Minty, mango-y, limey, kiwi flavours. I remember trying Hibiki 12 when it was £47 a bottle, and it'd be like, that's delicious, it looks great, it tastes great. And then trying the 17, and it was so much more complex and so much more elegant and just lovely. And it was 90 quid, but I didn't buy it. And one of you always comments, and I can't remember who it is, but we always regret the things we don't buy. And one of the things I didn't buy was Hibiki 17, Yamazaki 18, Kalila 30. But those things happen. We've just got to try and find those bottles now and see if we can get those now. Yeah, Taketsuru 17 was delicious as well. Like, yeah, it used to be 80 quid. I think it's now like 170. Yeah, just not even the Japanese with their classically forward-thinking ways predicted the demand, which was a real shame. But hindsight is an unusual thing, and we have that. But all we've got to do now is we've got to find the whiskies that are good value now to put together in the future. Leipzig PX could end away from me. I'm struggling. I have one. I have one of those Leipzig PXs, which you all know about. And I have another one on reserve. And I was looking at it today going, 150 is a lot of money. But it's one of the best whiskies I've ever tried. And at the minute I can't afford it because I've got a lot of outgoings this month. But it's my birthday next month. So I think next month I'm going to treat myself and get it. So I'll have 2. One to drink now and then one to drink in 10, 15, 20 years' time. Because that whiskey, I don't think we can get any more of it. But yeah, Hibiki 17, one of the most beautiful noses in the world. I still think it's one of the best blended whiskies I've ever tried. The only thing that competes with it, or could have ever competed with it, was the Cutty Sark Tam O'Shanter, which was a 25-year-old blended Cutty Sark, and it was mostly heavily sherried Highland Park and Macallan with a little bit of grain in it. And it was about 240 quid a bottle. Came in this beautiful big case with a book of the Tam O'Shanter in it. The old Robbie Burns poem. I wish I bought one of those because you can't get it anymore. What was that question? I heard through the community that there is a shitload of age statement Japanese whiskey stashed in Russian bars. I could believe that. I could believe that quite easily. Russia is a huge country, and they're one of those countries, in my opinion, that buys whiskey based on look. Still, much like China and Japan. Well, more China than Japan. A bottle that looks nice, and Hibiki looks fantastic. So I guarantee if you went to most Russian bars, you'd probably see a lot of old Hibiki. It's probably safe there. You'd imagine so, wouldn't you? Not much left of that. Treasure that one. Unless the bottles drop in price and they suddenly re-release it. Which will never happen. But we are just ticking into the 100th minute. So the 13 of you that are still here, and for at one point the 18 of you that were still kicking around, thank you so much for this. because yesterday was really unplanned and today was a bit more organised. But we've kind of, we did Glendronach and Hibiki, so it's got a little bit out there. I'm going to call it a night because I really need some food because that was more whiskey than what I planned on drinking. And I'm going to drink all of this water plus a lot more. Next week should be back to normal service, so we should have some just regular videos coming out, including a Benromac 10 100 proof, which I bought on auction, which is from 2014 again, like the Glendronach. I went halves on a bottle of Highland Park Twisted Tattoo with a colleague, so we'll be reviewing that. And maybe two of the whiskies that are probably going to be bourbons, which hopefully they'll arrive in time, but they'll be from Old Forester, and I really want to do some Old Forester stuff. Working, so couldn't chat much, but enjoy listening. No worries, Dram Dude. I'm happy that you're happy to listen. That's one of the, that means a lot to me. But yeah, the next 4 weeks you'll have a Benromac, we'll have a Highland Park, and 2 bourbons coming out. But yeah, thank you all for watching tonight. It's been a pleasure to chat with all of you. We've gone through some really interesting topics. I will be doing more of these because they're fun. I actually quite like them, and it's good to just get to talk to you all. But yeah, I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to grab some food. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, Facebook, just Whiskey Wednesday. Instagram, it's just my name, so it's Pdwyer, Pdwyer 92. Just hit me up on Instagram. I'm on that more than anything else. And Twitter is just @WhiskeyTube. So come and check me out over there as well. But thanks, guys. I'm going to call it a night, and I hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday evening and a great week as well. So we'll see you guys soon.